with us, but we do have Kim Petters, and she was on. We had a podcast about marijuana laws. That's been a big thing, federally, statewide, and everything. And also COVID policies. That was a fun one with
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
That was right when everything happened too.
What was that?
Well, thanks for always having me. I love coming on here. It's always good to be on and talk. And yeah, my name's Kim Petters from Magnolia, Delaware. I have 4 children. I'm a veteran. I've run for small political positions once before. I don't know. How would you describe me? I don't know. I'm an advocate for a lot of things. One day I'm probably going to run for office. One day soon. Yep, that's true. So, and yeah, right now, though, we're kind of in the heart of this gun fight. There's a lot of crazy anti-gun bills coming down the pike. And so a lot of women in our state, several hundred, have come together. And Deborah's one of them. She's a local teacher and also a shooting instructor, and just overall awesome.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I'm relatively new to the firearm scene. In fact, it's just been about 3 years since I shot a gun for the first time. I didn't grow up around it, and I didn't actually know any quote unquote gun people. I didn't know anybody, or at least I wasn't aware of the people that I already knew that may have been firearms owners. And so I just had to educate myself, take classes and learn and get training. And I liked it enough that I just have decided to go as far as I can in terms of developing my own skills, but also to be able to introduce others and help them to be able to safely and effectively handle a firearm as well.
I like they used air quotes, gun people. So,
well, there's not like a face. There's not a, we think, oh, a gun person looks like this, but that face has changed dramatically, in the last few years. But also, I think people would be surprised at the number of folks that they already know that are firearms owners.
Right. Just regular folks.
Yep. Regular folks.
So if you don't mind me asking, Deborah, what you said 3 years ago, what was it for you 3 years ago that had you shooting guns?
I had a friend that enjoyed shooting, and he said, hey, come along to the range with me. I'd like to take you, just once. And I went and I loved it. And I was a good shot. And it wasn't too long and we kind of parted ways. We were dating. He wasn't just my friend. We were dating and we parted ways. And I decided I didn't want to have a poor me party about like, oh, woe is me. I guess I can't shoot anymore because I don't know anybody that shoots. And so I just decided to I signed up for a class, a ladies class, and I took it. And then I joined the Well-Armed Woman, which is a national it's a nonprofit national women's shooting organization. And it offers education and training and opportunities to shoot for women, and just really started to grow from there. Oh, and Kim's holding up one of our brochures.
I had one from our shenanigans the other day. I said, oh, maybe I'll need this. There you go.
Yeah, we're not a political organization,
nope.
But it's a great place for women to learn about the shooting arts. And I've just grown personally as a result of learning that I'm so much more capable than I realized.
Me too. Me too. Just thinking about that today too. We can shoot blindfolded. We can reload blindfolded. We can shoot with one hand, left-handed. We can throw all our stuff and last minute. We can do all sorts of fun stuff. We have so much fun. And it's like really about like, I love the social aspect. So yeah, we get to go shoot guns, like these well-armed women meetups, right? But like every time I leave there, it feels a little like leaving church. So like, I don't know, there's all these women from like I don't know, 20 on up to great grandmas. Most of them are grandmas, and we just have so much fun. I don't know.
We sure do. I mean, I don't know what I would do without the friendships that I've developed because of being able to go shooting. You know, it's opened up an entirely new world for me because, like I said, I didn't grow up around guns at all, and I was more on the, you know, cautious side around guns, not very interested in ever owning a gun at one point in time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know it really is a shame that crime and gun violence really does tarnish what is a wholesome activity, even pastime, you know, like competition shooting. So I had exposure to that as a kid, you know, probably 10, 12 years old, you know, just competition shooting, you know, for accuracy and targets for prizes and things like that, it, you know, wasn't out of it wasn't out of like fear of self-defense or anything like that, or definitely not for crime or violent reasons.
Right.
More sport, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I don't know.
I find it very good for your mental health.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, I just find it's, you know, we've all been through a really difficult time, and we're still in the middle of a difficult time because of COVID and quarantine and a lot of things. But having an outlet to be able to go and enjoy still, I think it's definitely great for your mental health. Yeah.
Well, T, I was going to say, you know, everyone's sharing. I don't know if you want to share anything before we, you know, talk about the, you know, the bills and everything, but your gun experience or your view or anything.
For the most part, for those who may not know me, even though I'm a pretty frequent staple here, TJ, I'm pretty much a gun enthusiast. You know, I enjoy the mechanics. I enjoy knowing how they work, knowing the differences in the calibers and taking apart weapons, you know, putting them back together, stuff like that. But I'm also very interested and invested in the safety aspect and the history behind it, you know, and the founding fathers' viewpoint and their reason for why they pretty much made it a staple in the founding of this country. So obviously these bills have worried me, you know, a lot, which is I sent in I think an article last week to Keith and then a video last night to Keith because it is very worrisome, and I think it affects us. I think it affects our safety, which is the one thing they're constantly advocating for, while promoting bills or passing bills that actually contradict the thing they say they're advocating for.
Exactly.
Absolutely. You know, when we have rising rates of sexual assault, and yet we want to make it more difficult for a woman to get a gun, how does that help her to be safer? You know, we had shooting February 28th. We had 2 shootings in Dover, small town. We had 2 shootings in Dover, and they apprehended 2 suspects, and the suspects go free.
Yeah.
And
one of them shot 4 people.
Yeah.
He shot 4 people, and within 24 hours was let out of jail, and you're worried about.
And was a person prohibited from owning a firearm. You know, he was prohibited from possessing a firearm. So let's toughen up the laws that we already have on our books before we go and spend millions of dollars to enact new laws that affect the people that are lawful gun owners, responsible, care about safety. And why should we have to pay because other people commit crimes? I mean, I'm a single mom. I don't know about you. None of us have unlimited incomes. But as a single mom, I mean, you have to weigh every penny.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent or a big supporter of both Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman. And they both reference ideas and how it's not the intention, behind your policy. It's the actual effect of your policy. You know, so a lot of them, they put forth a lot of well-intentioned policies. Meanwhile, the effect is very detrimental, you know, and devastating. And in this case, it will be quite devastating for those who are low income. And it raises the bar of entry, which always deters some, you know, in a day and age where you have I think it's the most we've seen as far as gun people buying guns. And the majority of those people are both minority and women. So now you raise the bar of entry, which affects both minorities and women in the name of helping minorities and women. I just don't understand this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think I would have ever.
It doesn't make, it really doesn't make much. Oh.
It's okay. Go ahead, Kim.
I think we have some
Nope,
lag.
my computer's gonna die. I gotta get a charger.
That's all right.
Well, you know, I don't think I ever would have purchased a gun. You know, I was originally, you know, looking to spend about $250 just to buy something. You know, I was concerned, not any particular threat, but just wanting to be able to care for my kids and provide for them the best that I can. You know, as a mom, I've always been safety conscious. You know, when my children were little, making sure they were strapped into their strollers. If they were sitting in the stroller, they had to be buckled in because I never wanted to have a regret. Well, now that I've developed a skill for self-defense, then I want to be able to protect my children if I ever had to. And so that's a right I wouldn't have ever been able to take advantage of if the costs were so prohibitive for me to be able to do that.
And not even just the cost now, because now they want to mandate other things behind it. So it's not just a cost that prohibits or that creates a barrier. Now there is also mandatory trainings, which I think that every individual should be well trained. I think everyone should be well trained. I think they should understand the rules of firearm safety, but I don't think that mandating it is appropriate. You know, encourage it, put them in environments where people who they will be around, whether it's a gun range or whatever, where the people who they'll be around teach them, you know, but not to where it's mandated. There's a certain quota, you have to have this many hours or pay this much, because now all you do is further deter people. You know, you create you raise the bar.
Right. And you can also give a false sense of security. Oh, well, I did that, so I'm good. You know, the person that has gone through a concealed carry, a CCDW course, and thinks that their training stops there. Well, no, that's just a beginning. It's just a launch pad. But if we say, well, you need 8 hours of training. Oh, okay, I've got 8 hours, so I'm good. You know, I agree with you, TJ. Like, it shouldn't be mandated. It should be something that we certainly encourage. I mean, I'm a firearms instructor. I encourage people to get more training because I think that's for their own benefit. But there's a lot of training that I have received through the Well-Armed Woman, for example, through this shooting organization. And it wasn't a specific class, but we provide ongoing training on a monthly basis. You know, how do you quantify that and say, well, that's not valuable. It has to be this. And you know, 8 hours of training on average costs $200.
When I first bought a gun, I think it was like the next day to someone down south. He's an instructor, but he didn't charge me for it or anything. I said, hey, listen, I have this gun and I need to know how to use it pretty quickly. You know, because I only had experience with long guns when I was in the military, you know, M16s, and I wanted to know how to use, you know, a little handgun. And he had a range at his house, and I just went there and we fired off plenty of rounds, and I left there feeling very confident. And then it, you know, so I didn't have to pay for it. I didn't need an expensive training, and I still took the responsibility, the personal responsibility of making sure I know how to safely handle and operate a firearm. And then after that, later, I took it upon myself to actually, I took further. I did actually eventually with that person, Kevin Outen is his name. I ended up taking more classes with him and paying But that was from my own choosing at my own pace and when I had time, and I didn't have to wait on that in order to physically have the handgun and learn how to use it. I didn't need a government mandated training that was certified and this and that. Like, that's not how the Second Amendment works. That's not how personal protection works. That's not how tyranny works. That's not how any of that works. So I don't know. So I don't think it's right to say that you have to get this mandatory training. And then, oh, by the way, who's going to pay for it and who's going to make sure all this happens? So now we're taking all of our tax dollars and we're creating this government entity, which is only going to expand and grow over time. And I hate to say it, but likely the people who hold majority party are going to hire their friends for those positions, which keeps feeding that big blue monster. Let's be honest, this does go into politics. And by the way, all those positions, we're going to be paying all those retirements too, because it's never going away. It's only going to expand. So now we got to pay taxes to have our rights delayed.
I remember when we did the the podcast about marijuana and marijuana laws here in Delaware, and you guys were letting me know, like even what had been done, there was a little bit of cronyism involved in what they did allow. So it just seems kind of, especially here in this state, it seems par for the course for there to be a little bit of cronyism and corruption, even if they do allow.
I think it's because we're a small state. I didn't come from Delaware. I've lived here for a little over 8 years. But one thing that I love about Delaware is the same thing that you just mentioned. I love the fact that I can go places and I know people. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows a friend of yours, and I think because of that, it's this small community wherever you are in Delaware, and it just tends to, it's a wonderful thing. But everything that's good, if it's out of balance, it can become a negative.
I might have been reading it wrong, but it looked like Kim might have had a different opinion on that.
Well, I do love that Delaware is small and everybody knows everybody, but it does leave a lot of room for corruption. And I just want to say, I know we're not here to talk about, cannabis or marijuana, but the last time we spoke, I told you I had a concern that a delegate, so like a senator, if you will, in New Jersey, he wanted his hands on a dispensary license here in Delaware. Well, guess what? He got his hands on, so the majority whip, if you will, of New Jersey is about to become a bazillionaire in Delaware. He got one of the licenses, and now when we go recreational, all that money is going to funnel in towards him. I'm sorry, the whole thing, everything has corruption. So while I love a small Delaware, and I do love seeing people I know everywhere, I've actually always dreamed of living that way my whole life. I just wanted that small town feel, and I have it. But with that comes corruption. And with a small town feel, nobody wants to be the one to rock the boat. So the corruption, they're just allowed to do it because it's a small town. If you upset one person, word travels fast. And now you may lose clients, you may lose business. So people, because it's small, keep their mouths shut. And honestly, that's how this stuff's allowed to happen. There are pros and cons to everything. I don't mean to be negative, Nancy.
Absolutely.
Much not to bring it up. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that's where something that can be a positive, if it's taken to one extreme, it can be a negative.
Yeah.
And if it goes unchecked.
People. It depends on your leaders, quite frankly. I guess that can happen anywhere.
Right.
Larger states or smaller.
True.
Well, how about the bills? Again, I don't know if it's a April Fool's Day joke that these bills passed on today, but it seems like they passed, at least to my knowledge. But do you guys want to give us kind of a walkthrough of what those bills entail?
Yeah, so there's one, SB3 is a permit to purchase bill, and it has all sorts of requirements in there. So not only do you do the NICS background check, the already federal background check, to purchase a gun, there's additional background checks that the state is putting in. There's additional that they're going to be requiring. There's additional fingerprinting, all at your expense. There's going to be waiting periods. There's going to be required trainings that you have to take. It's just, there are so many barriers in place that it's going to cost upwards of $500 just to get the permit. So there's that. And then there is SB6, which is the magazine capacity limit. I think it's 27 rounds, is it, Deborah?
It's limited to 17 rounds.
Yeah, I thought it was 17.
Sorry, 17 rounds. Yeah, I was thinking 27. There's no way. So yeah, and you know, these bills are no good at all. It literally is going to change the face of gun ownership in Delaware. And it's funny because we had a meeting with Kathy Jennings, our Attorney General's staff, and I asked them, or he asked me, he says, their legislative coordinator says, well, you have your concealed carry permit, right? And I said, well, no, actually, I took the course, but they require so much. You got to go get your picture taken. You got to get 5 references from someone in your state, in your county. You got to publish it in the newspaper. Okay, there's just all these extra steps, which, by the way, are Delawareisms. Not every state does that. Very few states require those extra things. So anyway, I told this guy, Kathy Jennings, you know, administrator, I said, no, I said, I don't have it. I took the course, but there's so many hoops you have to jump through. I haven't gotten it yet. And he's like, yeah, exactly. And it's going to be just like that for permit to purchase, which means less people will have guns.
And you know, the reality is that the people that are making these laws, obviously, I don't know all of their individual experiences, but it seems to me that they really don't understand firearms very well. For example,
that's correct.
Up until just a few years ago, the number has changed somewhat, but you know, trained law enforcement officers who are 100% shooters. That means that that in target practice, they get on target 100% of the time. When they're in a defensive situation, their shots are 3 to 7% accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's been 10 years. That's improved because their training methods have improved. I think now it's actually up to about 25%. It's close to that figure right now. But that's law enforcement officers who get to train and have, you know, different type of training than I do as a public school teacher, right? And so you're telling me that somebody breaking down my door, now I have a teenage daughter, I have a 13-year-old. So somebody breaking down my door, and I don't know what they have in mind. Let's hope that I have a firearm nearby that I can use if needed, if deadly force is required, because I don't want my daughter to go through the trauma of rape. Not if I can help it. Yep. Not on my watch. And so who's going to say, you know, how many rounds are needed to stop that? I just can't quantify that because I can't, you know, and I've been in situations where I practice swapping one magazine out for another, and you work on those skills. Right. But even with that training, somebody's, you know, high on drugs walking through my door, they're not feeling the effect of the bullets. You know, there was Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say, when we went, so Erin, who's also the other co-founder of this, of our coalition, our Women's Defense Coalition, her and I and her daughter, we decided, you know, we keep hearing so much about their defenses that Senator Laura Sturgeon, who's super anti-gun, claims that she put out this survey, which nobody I know has weighed in on this survey. And this survey supposedly states that 74% of Delawareans want stricter gun control and this and that. And so my friend Erin and I were like, well, yes, right. And so Erin and I were like, let's just go to some of the furthest left districts we can find and let's talk to people. Let's ask them, right? So we had a sign, you know, I think one said, can we talk gun rights? And the other one said, gun rights matter, right? And we just got out of the car and we were in Senator Darius Brown's district. And we just would stop and ask one person and they would hear, other people would hear what we were saying. And other people would come over and say, you know, because we'd say, oh, well, if you agree with this, can we take a picture with you? And they'd say, yes, absolutely. So many people were flocking to us. When I tell you over 100 people easily, and 100% of these people said that they do not want a permit to purchase bill. And I'll tell you why. Once we explained to them the barriers in place, they said, well, that just makes it so hard that why don't we just go down the street and we can just buy a gun there? It's easier. And I said, yeah, totally. I get that. But what happens when you get caught with it? So basically, Senator Darius Brown, you voted today to turn all of the people into your district criminals. You turned your back on them. And I'm going to go back and let them know that you voted yes for this, just so you know. But that is absolutely disgusting, because when we were there, I mean, Aaron can tell you, their faces when they realized, wait a minute. So if I have to do all this to get a gun, I'm not going to have the money for that. I mean, half the people we talked to were using public transportation. So you think that they have the extra $500 and that's just the license, if you will, to buy a gun. So now they have to choose between safety and affordability.
Right.
And if they choose safety and buy a gun on the street and they get caught with it, now they're going to jail, all because of people like Senator Darius Brown, people like Senator Laura Sturgeon, people like Senator Tizzy Lockman, people like Senator Townsend, people like Senator McBride. They are people like Senator Kyle Evans Gay. They are so anti-gun that they are putting people in harm's way. 1 in 3 women will be raped or assaulted in their lifetime. Right now in Delaware, women in Wilmington are 4 times more likely to encounter someone trying to assault them than they are encountering someone trying to hurt them with a gun. And in Dover, they're 10 times more likely to encounter someone trying to assault them versus encounter someone with a gun. And people like Kyle Evans Gay and Rep. Sean Lynn and all those people, all those anti-gun people are putting women in harm's way because, by the way, I weigh like 120 pounds, more than half the population can overpower me. And that's not fair that they make it harder for us to choose how we want to defend ourselves. I shouldn't have to choose between putting food on the table for my 4 children or defending or having a gun to defend myself. No one should have to choose that. And I'm so disappointed in our state legislature.
Yep. I think it's a joke, like you said, 74%, whatever they claimed,
That's such crap.
You're pretending like the bills that you're passing are the voice of the people.
They're not.
And you see it time and time again. And I think again, not to keep referencing the old podcast, but I think we talked about that. We were talking about federal elections versus state and local elections. This is why you have to keep up with their voting record and what they're passing and what you agree on, and stop voting for a party and vote for policies, that you actually line up with, because, whoever that is, keeps voting in the same people that are doing the opposite of what you actually believe in or support. And they get to just say, this is what the people want. And I guess ignore the voicemails and the emails and the phone calls objecting to what they're getting to do,
I mean, my understanding is that yesterday afternoon, the Senate Judiciary Committee had a hearing, and they heard arguments for and against 3 different bills that were before them. And there were 700 people is the number that I heard on the call.
Correct.
And of those, many were not able to speak because of the limits placed on them. But there were 8 people that argued for the bills, for the restrictions, for the gun control measures. And yet those 8 were not all from Delaware. What are you doing messing with our lives and the laws that affect us? There are people from New York City that are lobbying for, I mean, you've got a whole lot more people. I mean, you have more people in one borough of New York City than you have in our entire state. Why do you need to come down here and mess with us?
Can I also add that of those 8 people who spoke, okay, so there's this group called Moms Demand Action who are so ill-informed, and they think if they take everyone's guns, we're going to be safer, right? Because that's what they think. And so of those 8 people, like 4 of them were Moms Demand Action, the same people that show up every single time. And one of them is like Kathy Jennings' scheduler, the person when you need an appointment or a meeting with her. They don't even have people from the community, and it's that are supporting these. They have like 5 people who want these bills. And it's so funny because today Senator Lawson in the Senate hearing, he held up a stack. He printed out all the emails for and against, and the ones for were like this, and the ones against were like this. But do you think they care? No. And I'll tell you why. Because of the people who get them elected, the people who fund their campaigns, the people they made promises to should they get elected. I no longer believe this is about the people. I was naive enough to believe that for a time. I no longer believe that. And I also think the fact that we are from Joe Biden's state, I think that's killing us. I think that's killing us that President Biden is from Delaware, because we all know that Carney is going to run for Congress after this. We all know Kathy Jennings is going to run for governor after this. And so it's just, they're all going to want his
blue wave. That's that blue
endorsement. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started. They're all going to want his endorsement. So they're doing everything that he would want. I mean, it's the reason our state is still shut down the way it is.
I mean, like just within the first 100 days of office, they passed a resolution and, gratitude to Kamala Harris for her accomplishments. What has she done for Delaware? I mean, that to me, it just speaks.
Oh, you tell me.
I mean, why are we, let's deal with Delaware. I mean, I'm not from here, but I love Delaware like it's my own. It's my adopted state. I've chosen to
Delaware
stay here.
is your
I've chosen
home.
to raise my children. It is my home. Dover's my hometown. It may not be where I grew up, but it's my hometown. And it just kills me to see that, when I first started getting involved in this issue, I was going to say fight, but I if you know me, I don't like fighting. I don't like confrontation. I figure
she is so sweet and elegant and well-spoken. I don't even know what she's doing hanging out with us. I swear she's like our better half. I strive to be more like you. I'm not even kidding.
But I thought if they could just hear our hearts, if they could just see that this is really about protecting women. In my naivete, I just thought that might make a difference, but it doesn't.
That would be nice.
They've made up their minds. They've decided it doesn't matter the unintended consequences. Let's recognize that we all want to see an end to gun violence, but that's not going to happen when we're only punishing the innocent. Let's punish the offenders and deal with it from that angle, not sit here and place more restrictions that are cost prohibitive on law-abiding people that don't break the resolutions that are the legislation that's already in effect.
So I do have a question.
I'd like to. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing, because everyone talks about the offenders, and I agree with that, because 70% of the people arrested in Delaware for gun crimes have already already a person prohibited or have been charged previously. However, a lot of them are very young. A lot of them are underage. So while I know what you mean by this, because I say it all the time too, we need to be going after the people that are committing these crimes. If they care, if these legislators care so much about their communities, why don't they care why that teenager felt the need to have a gun? Does anybody even care about the streets that kid has to walk down, or the home that child returns to? Does anybody care about addressing the real root of the problem? Because more often than not, there's like no kid just wants to have a gun for no reason. So whether they're affiliated with other people or gangs or whatever it is, we need to address that. Oftentimes it's socioeconomic. So why aren't we doing more to help that? It's education. Why aren't we doing more to do that? If these people care so much about their districts, why aren't they on the streets helping them? Why aren't they doing what we did and go talk to them? I'm not buying it anymore, that it's about public safety. It's not. And I'm not buying anymore that they care about the people in their district, because they don't.
Well, I wish you would tell us how you feel. T, do you have a response to that?
Man. There was some referenced earlier. I can't remember the exact number, 75% or whatever. They often use that tactic. It's. I don't want to say it's an intellectual sleight of hand. I think it plays on ignorance. They use numbers, and for example, they'll say 85% of people support universal background checks. But what they don't tell you is that the people who, quote, support it have no idea what the difference between a universal background check and a regular background check is, and when you actually inform them, as Kim have said that they've done, when you inform them of what the specifics are, then their support changes, and you actually find out they're not in support. You don't have that number that you thought you had. But in order to, I guess, bolster or give the illusion of support, they throw out these numbers that are just false, and misrepresentations, but that take the ignorance of the people for their benefit. Right. And as far as the congressmen, the representatives, I think a larger issue is a lack of accountability. They can do these things. I was watching Timcast yesterday, and Ian had brought up how these representatives should have smart contracts. And what you ran on is exactly what we voted for you for. That's exactly what you should be held accountable for. And once you deviate from that, then we should be able to redress the grievances and get you out of there, because you ran on this, and this, and that's what we voted for, and when you have a stack of paper that's 4 times as big as another stack, but you're willing to go with the minority, for the sake of your donors, I think you should be held accountable for that. They shouldn't be able to sneak this through and there be no repercussion. The fact that people can do this and then say, well, I'm going to run for office, you shouldn't have the opportunity. The fact that you've done this and that you went against that you went against the people that you're supposed to represent, you should be removed from office. Because that's not the case, because a lot of people really don't. They have this position to where it's like, well, it's done now. What can I do? I talked to a guy yesterday about the bills, and he was like, well, it's going to pass anyway. So, it is what it is.
They feel defeated already.
Yeah. And that defeatist mindset doesn't help anything. If they have won this, quote, battle, we need to get even tougher, in response and say, well, look, there's no reason why it should be acceptable that you went against the majority of the people you're supposed to represent. And it shows that you are not a representative of the people. That's just the guise by which you do your own thing. You actually represent special interests. But until there's severe accountability for those who, I don't mean like harming, but until there's until there's
thank you for clarifying that.
I don't speaking of guns, I don't want
after that. Knock at the door.
Don't take that out of context. Right. But until there's actual accountability, for those who betray their oath or who go against the people who they're supposed to represent, then I think this will only continue. In regards to, Kim was just speaking of actually finding out the underlying issues.
Yes,
I'm more of a yes. I really think that's the best course of action, but I don't think that they will take that course of action because it doesn't allow for them to push the gun control narrative. It doesn't allow for them to garner the support that they can garner by simply pointing at the weapon itself, by simply pointing at the deed itself. You know,
It's
they
like
often
putting
use
a
criminals.
Band-Aid on, you know, when somebody is bleeding out on the floor, it's like giving them a Band-Aid.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
except that you're making everybody wear the Band-Aid.
Mhm.
Everybody who doesn't need to wear the Band-Aid is forced to wear the Band-Aid. But
And you never
what you
actually
have is a
address the
situation
issue.
when somebody's bleeding on the floor.
Yes. Yeah. And I noticed also that I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I believe that if a person is free, they should have the right to keep and bear arms. If you don't deem them safe enough to keep and bear arms, then they should not be on the street. You know, so I think that the label of quote criminal is often used to the benefit of those who desire to take away our rights. I don't hold that same position. I'm an ex-felon. You know, I went through the process of getting my pardon and all that. Proved myself to be a decent individual. You know, I proved myself to be someone
That's
who's
debatable.
reliable. Here he goes. After being in church for 14 years now, you know, being a deacon, a minister, and just being active in the community as well, you know, trying to help the children. I've proven myself to be someone who is the epitome of change, you know, who's come from one way of life and has changed and become someone who now I'd give my life, you know, for people that I don't even know. I'd give my life in service and to protect those who are vulnerable, you know. So seeing where I come from, I don't think that just because someone has had a record, you know, or has had a criminal history means that they should be deprived of the right to defend themselves. And I think that because we do that, we only bolster the number of criminal interactions, you know, or we only bolster the crime report, because you have people who are in these certain situations who carry a gun because they feel like they have to, not because they're trying to do anything wrong. They feel like they have to because of where they are, because of things they see every day, and they're correct, you know, in that sense. But when something happens, even if they defend themselves, they're viewed as the aggressor. You know, both of them are viewed as the aggressor. It's just two criminals were, you know, in a shootout, and they use that scenario as well, instead of it being someone actually defended themselves. So I think there's a whole lot that's
never brought up. By the way, that's never, ever, ever brought up. The times guns are used to stop crimes or protect person's self, life, or property. Never, ever, ever brought up. You're right.
And it's underreported as well. It's greatly underreported, because I was looking at some studies, and it was shown that when people brandish a weapon and it stops a crime, or when someone shoots at an individual who's either breaking into their home or you know, out in public, if the person isn't hit, if the person doesn't want to go on record, or there are times just where it's not reported as a defensive gun use. Right, so you have this large number of defensive gun uses that are not reported at all, but they over-report.
Or how about the person who was in a situation, because I would totally do this. If I needed to like pull my gun for whatever reason and not use it, and then situation's diffused, the threat has left, I've left. I'm not necessarily going to call the cops and report, oh, by the way, there was this situation where I had to. So you're right. It's probably even the numbers that we do have. I never even thought about
underreported.
How many must be so underreported. But reported or underreported anyways, the fact is they never consider it. They never bring it up. They're just like, oh, we're going to take it, and we don't care what the unintended consequences are for you. We don't care if it's going to make it less safe for you. They don't care.
And I like that you bring up the what's called the law of unintended consequences, you know, because you can put forth legislation or whatever, and there will be consequences from that, whether they're good or bad. You know, there's going to be consequences. And I think that one thing I have a question, you know, and I wonder if Delaware, as of right now, is a state where you can illegally carry if you're legally allowed to own a gun. How does it help to create a barrier now to where you have to go through all these hoops, you know, in order to purchase the weapon and carry the weapon. Wouldn't that only create more victims? You know, whereas of now, if you can buy a gun, if you legally own it, you can buy it and you can protect yourself. Well, they're putting forth this legislation to where you'll have to do all this extra stuff. And when seconds matter, when time matters, the time that it takes you to go through that process keeps you in jeopardy. So how does that help?
Yeah,
Also-
I don't know if yours is rhetorical, but that was similar to what my question was earlier, or what it was going to be, was I genuinely want to know what's the merit, you know, what's the merit to these bills? What's the merit to what this bill creates? If you guys are able to articulate that, I know it's difficult when you stand opposed to something.
No, it's,
But
I'll
from
tell
their
you.
perspective, what's the merit?
Yeah.
You know, what does it
I'll
help?
tell you, from their perspective, there are two things that they're trying to reduce here. One is straw purchases, and that's where guns are bought illegally. Like, so someone legally buys a gun and then sells it to someone who's a person prohibited. The second thing, so Representative Dorsey Walker, we're really trying to work with her right now because her concerns is suicide. She thinks it's going to reduce suicide. So I just want to say, while those are very well intended, here's the thing with suicide. Where there's a will, there's a way. If a
Right.
person is suicidal, taking away their guns isn't going to do anything because, one, they still have access to pills, their car, jumping in front of something, jumping off of something, or, oh, by the way, they have the key to their neighbor's house because they feed their cats when they're on vacation for the last several years, and, oh, they have guns, so they have access to it. If a person is a threat to themselves or someone else, the person needs to be quarantined, not the tool. Second, when it comes to, you know, straw purchases, all this is actually going to do is increase straw purchases. Every single person that we spoke to said, I'm going to be forced to have to go buy one illegally. Now, you brought up something that made me think that I had not thought about. All these people who buy these guns illegally, and Deborah, think about this for a minute. They now have an illegal gun because they need it for safety or whatever reason, and the permit to purchase was too out of reach for them to get. Do you think they're going to show up with that gun for training?
No.
I would be scared
I think
to
it will
bring
deter
illegal
training.
objects to the instructors who follow all the rules of
Mhm.
law, because so now we're going to have illegal guns and more people going to jail for having them simply because they just wanted the right to carry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, you know, as
this no bueno. These are no bueno.
you know, it doesn't.
And not all, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm laughing because I'm a Spanish teacher for those that don't know. So she's saying no bueno. And, you know, but, you know, I think that sometimes out of a concern for safety, as we discussed, the unintended consequences, you know, I strongly recommend, if you ever draw a firearm, even if somebody goes away, that you do report it to the police. Because it is important that they understand, because they might know there's a track record here. They might, you know, and it also is a good way for you to make sure that they understand, you know, the circumstances that were going on. But from a safety standpoint, if the unintended consequence, and I'm not recommending that people go out and buy guns illegally, not recommending that whatsoever, but
I think the politicians are.
The politicians
it
are
does
recommending
seem like that. It
The only
does
reason
seem
I'm
like
here
that.
is to just ad lib jokes. Okay, so you continue. Don't let me interrupt you.
But I think the reality is, you know, if the concern is for safety, then let's address the safety, mental health concerns, environment issues that are affecting those that are committing crimes. It's not, you know, when we talk about, you know, the worst things, you know, the worst plague, or one of the worst plagues that has hit our country in the last 20, 25 years is mass shootings. We didn't used to have them, and now it's a reality. Now it's a reality that we, as a school teacher, we train for them. As people, we think about them. We wonder, you know, because there's no place that's safe. You know, malls, churches, synagogues, schools. There's no place that's safe. and we can declare places that are gun safe zones, but it doesn't keep them safe. And until we realize that, we're not going to be addressing the root issues. So we're not, if I'm for the ability to carry a firearm or to defend myself or my family with that tool, if I so choose, and the situation warrants itself, that doesn't mean that I want to see gun violence on the rise. But there's actually statistics, and I'm sorry I don't have them handy, but as the number of concealed carry permit holders has gone up, and this isn't, I believe these are national statistics, not state statistics. The number of violent crimes has gone down. Why is that? Because if you know that anybody could be prepared to defend themselves with a gun if necessary, you're going to think twice before you hold up that liquor store or that gas station, because you don't know if that soccer mom might be prepared to defend herself because she's carrying a firearm concealed. But if you know that all the guns are locked up,
know for a fact,
yeah.
Right? Yep.
Then there's no longer a deterrent.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one thing about mass shootings is, so I went to 2 years ago, Senator Hansen, who's anti-gun. She says she's not, and that she follows the statistics, but she follows the bias statistics that are Bloomberg funded. It'd be like me sending her NRA stats, like, come on, can you find something a little unbiased? But anyway, so Senator Hansen had this gun forum a few years ago, and there was this forensic, like, mass shooting scientist guy, expert, whatever, that came and spoke. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think the main cause of these, like, mass shootings going into schools and, movie theaters? And he said, the reason is media. He says, and he showed like slides and this and that, but basically it comes down to, we're always going to have psychopaths in the world, right? They're going to be walking among us forever, which all the more reason to always be carrying. But and he said, when they see one person do it, in their minds, it's glorified, and that the copycat effect is real. So if we know this, and we have these experts who say all this, why aren't we going to the media and saying, hey, stop making this guy look like a hero because he just shot 30 people? And instead of saying, oh, well, we better take everyone's guns. No, if there's psychopaths out there, which there's always going to be with guns, I'm always going to have a gun too, because I don't want to be caught without one ever again.
and the reality is, it was 1999 when we had the Columbine High School shooting with Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris. Well, when was the internet really starting to take off? When was the accessibility factor really starting to take off? You don't have to be, some educated person that likes to read the newspaper. You just have to have a Twitter account.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I was listening to
go ahead.
I think his name is John Elliott, I believe. Guy who was testifying in Texas a few days ago, and he brought up mass shooters and how their intent, their goal is to essentially commit suicide, but they know that they'll receive much more attention if they take other people with them. He was bringing up how I believe it was the Batman theater, or the shooting that took place during the release of a Batman movie at a theater. And he said there were like 4 different theaters in a 20-minute drive from the person's house, but they went to the one theater where they restricted guns. And he was saying that these people, they always go, I mean, it makes sense. Crimes of opportunity will take place where there's optimal opportunity. If you know the only opportunity that you will get going into a place is to receive a bullet, you will not go there. So if you want to make people safer, then you arm the public. A armed society is a polite society. This is a very true thing. It keeps everyone honest. It keeps everyone honest. It's like the cameras being in every corner of the room. It's going to keep you honest, because there's always something recording. If you know there's always someone around you who may have a weapon, then you're less likely to act the fool. You're less likely to pull your weapon because you know that not only is the person who you're targeting, they may engage you, but also others around you will engage you as well. So you don't have the opportunity to have that mass shooter, effect. You don't get that notoriety. You don't get that infamy.
Why, the other thing the forensic guy said is oftentimes when they pick people to like mass shoot, it's a mental, obviously they have mental problems, and it's always these people have something that I don't have. Like they're mad about their own lives because either they don't have love or friends or whatever it is. Every single time it's they have something I don't have. That's a mental problem. Taking everyone's guns is not going to stop that from happening.
Right. I was going to say it's why Wyatt Earp had his peacemaker. It seems, call a gun a peacemaker, but I know we've been kind of tiptoeing around it and not to get, partisan or anything like that, but are political, but it does tend to be like that a lot of times I'll say left or far left, it's like the ideologies are utopian, they're delusional, it's like to not understand that the gun is the equalizer, is the peacemaker, is to somehow believe that people are inherently good, virtuous, and will do you no harm. I don't know what world you've lived in, but it's a very comfy life, that we should all wish to have. But meanwhile, in reality, 1 in 3 women are raped, like you said, and all different types of other assaults and robberies and murders, go on. They don't seem to be making policy, from reality, from, the fact that people aren't that good, that bad things happen. And unfortunately, the only thing that stops bad people is force, is something more forceful than what they're bringing, to stop them. Which I was going to ask, previously, Deborah mentioned it, but it's like, yeah, who knows the magic number of how many rounds it takes to take a man down, to take a threat down there, and I don't know how many you've seen. I've seen enough, for myself, but how many people were shot and then either end up shooting, hurting, or stabbing police or a victim nearby, even though they had been shot numerous times. I don't know.
There's a video,
and they just go down instantly all the time.
There's a video I saw. It was footage, body cam footage from a police officer, and this is from within the past year. I don't remember the town and I don't remember the specifics, but you can see that he's approached by a threat, and the gentleman kept approaching him and kept going and wouldn't stop. And it took 14 rounds before the gentleman stopped continuing to come toward the police officer. 14 rounds went into him. Well, if I have a 17-round magazine, when I have adrenaline running through me and I'm in a situation where I've never had to fight for my life before, can I guarantee that 14 of those are going to be on the threat? Now, it's also my job to stop shooting if the guy goes down with one, but I don't have a guarantee that he's going to go down with one round.
Right. You would have to have 75% accuracy when it's quite the opposite. You said at best the numbers are 75% inaccuracy. At best, they're hitting the target 25% of the time in the heat of the moment.
And that's law enforcement officers who train for these eventualities.
Right. You and I are not.
That's not in the middle of the night being woken up either.
Right. Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly. All kinds of circumstance, going in your van or your car for something and someone coming up behind you or whatever the case may be. All different things where you're not mentally or otherwise prepared, where a police officer is very different. They're going out on the job, almost prepared for it, very different situation.
I mean, they still have to react, but yes, almost prepared for it. When I'm woken up at 3 a.m. and my brain is foggy, I can't say that I'm going in like a police officer who has his hand on his firearm and he's, ready to take action if needed.
Yeah, I talked to a cop. I talked to an officer from Milford actually about a year ago, and we were talking about a police shooting, and people were outraged because the cop shot, I won't say 4 or 5 times, and everyone says, why you just shoot once? And he was saying that when you're under pressure, when you're under stress, you actually fire more times than you realize. And by the time you realize that the threat has been stopped, you already fired 2 or 3 more shots. So not only do you have that aspect, which will drain your magazine capacity real fast, you also have the fact you have to hit the individual, and under stress, you have a less likely chance of hitting them, and you have to hit them in an anatomically correct or significant spot, because you can hit a person 4, 5, 6 times. If you haven't hit them in an area that incapacitates them, they will keep coming after you. So there's so many variables that have to meet. Yes.
And they have adrenaline coursing through them as well, so they're not feeling the effects of the rounds that are hitting them.
So you have so many things that are actually against you. You have to be focused. You have to have the proper training. You have to hit them with each shot. You have to hit them in an anatomically significant spot. There's just so much there that the average individual, you will end up running through a magazine before you know it. And the more you restrict capacity, is the less likely that person, has a defending himself, and you're always having to defend yourself. It's not like you've seen the criminal, you engage them. They're most likely, they're catching you. They have to drop on you, so you're operating from the defensive.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Well, and when, if you're operating from the defensive, that means that you are being reactive. And if you are being reactive, your time is slower. In fact, they did a study of college students and trained law enforcement officers. And all they had to do was pull the firearm, get a shot off on target, right? So the college students could just pull it, get a shot off as quickly as they could. And I believe it was about 3/4 of a second that, their time on target. And the police officers were able to shoot. They were already poised, ready to shoot. As soon as the light went off, they could shoot. So the college students are pulling, say pulling a firearm from a hoodie, pulling out of concealment to fire, and they're able to do it in under a second. The trained law enforcement officers who are reacting to the threat, it takes them something like 1.2 seconds. It takes them longer than a second because they're not being proactive. They're in that reactive situation. So that's what happens to us. If we're talking self-defense, it actually takes longer because your brain has to process, okay, there's a threat. Okay, what am I going to do with that threat? This is how I'm going to handle it. Is it a deadly threat? Is it a threat that requires deadly force, or can I escape through the back door of my house because I don't need to engage this threat?
Right. We took the kids to the Franklin Institute a couple years ago, and there was an exhibit, activity type thing that was testing your brain speed to react to something. So as soon as you saw this or heard a sound, you hit the button and it would tell you how fast. And as soon as you start explaining it, I was like, oh no, they're not going to be faster in a second. We couldn't get faster in a second. It took a certain amount of time. And that actually answered a question I had in the back of my mind. I was going to bring it up earlier that, I've seen these one recently where a woman who had been stopped ended up in a shootout and shot a police officer and then took off. And I watched the police officer. I'm always asking myself, why didn't you shoot, bro? You took way too long. But that actually is a reasonable answer, other than something else, whatever it could be, is that no, he had to take time to react. He actually had to think about, I'm getting shot. What am I going to do? But I was like, man, you just sat there and let her shoot you. It's unfortunate, but that makes sense. It takes longer to react. Man.
The only thing I wanted to say about this is another reason why it's so dangerous that they have these limits is because these limits are just this year. So once this passes, next year it's going to be 10-round magazine.
Right.
See? So that's also why, no, leave our rights alone. Completely leave us alone.
So I do want to ask, right? We mentioned how, people it's an uphill battle and there's nothing you can do. I do want to ask you guys, as far as your thoughts or advice, as far as what can be done, what should people do that don't agree with this? They might not be gun nuts or enthusiasts, but they, I kind of have the position that you can act like you don't like guns all you want, but the fact that we have the Second Amendment and that gun owners exist are the reason why you have a comfortable life in the United States that you have.
Mhm.
If that did not exist from the beginning or today, it wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't. So if people want to, kind of fight against this or, support you guys, what's the move? What can be done?
Well, definitely you can find us, and I'll let you give all the information, but the best thing that everybody can do right now is look up who their representative is, because these bills are going to the House next. And so it's their representatives. Forget your senators. They've already passed this bill. Your only hope now is the House. And email them.
I think we lost.
Just saying, I oppose. If all you write is I oppose, early, that's it. Yeah, and that's why I kept interrupting you guys too. My internet's unstable, and I didn't know I was interrupting you until I already was. Sorry.
That's fine.
So why don't you go ahead and explain, Deborah, since you can't hear me.
So it's really important. So the Senate has already voted on Senate Bill 3 and Senate Bill 6. It has passed the Senate. So right now, the only hope that we have of preventing these bills from being passed into law is to be able to reach the members of the House of Representatives. So you can go to, I believe it's legis.delaware.gov, and there you can find a list of all of the senators and the representatives for the state of Delaware. Again, that's legis.delaware.gov. So to write your representatives, look for the House of Representatives, because that's the really important part right now, is to just contact them and urge them to vote no. If you have a story to share your stories. I'm not sure if they're listening or not, but
that was my next
I'm never going to give up trying. So the other thing that you can do if you're interested in what we're doing with the Women's Defense Coalition of Delaware, you can find us on Facebook. We're on Facebook and Instagram as @WDC of Delaware. So that's @WDC of Delaware for both Facebook and Instagram. And that's a public page. And so you can just like that public page. And if you're interested, there's some other ways you can just reach out to us, and we'd be happy to share other ways that you can get involved. But you can reach out to us on that page.
Okay. I do have a question. How about we get a couple of the comments? Just I don't want to neglect them too long, I guess, but we got some comments and some questions that maybe we can ask. But before we wrap up, I wanted to actually ask your guys' opinions on, I think the House bill is related to ghost kits.
125.
I want to get your guys' opinions. So don't let me forget, but let me read a couple. We got a finally, hey, one says, I'm personally scared of guns due to a traumatic experience. Crying emoji. Do I have to say the emoji? Do I have to? Sorry.
So the question again was that they're scared of guns due to a traumatic experience.
Traumatic experience, but they do own swords.
So one thing that I've had the opportunity is, I've had the opportunity to work with people that do have fear, and some people actually want to conquer that fear. You see them and they're trying to shoot and they're literally shaking and they have tears streaming down their face. And, nobody has to ever pick up a gun. This is not about that. This is not about forcing everybody that the way you're going to defend yourself is with a gun. It's the only way to defend yourself. There's a lot of different routes to go, and there's a lot of non-lethal options too. If you're trying to defend yourself, the gun is only necessary if deadly force is merited.
And you don't have to support you don't have to own a gun in order to support the Second Amendment, just to preserve it. So it's always an option. And anyone who's afraid of a gun, I am really sorry to hear that it was about a traumatic experience. And And whoever that is that wrote that, if they want to message us, we can link them up with someone who could help them overcome that if they want to. But I would like to say, even without a traumatic experience, a lot of people are afraid of guns. I know I was at first, and I believe that that's a healthy fear. I believe that I respected the tool, the gun itself. And once you become familiar and you have and you learn more with it, that fear is now gone. The respect still remains, but that fear is gone. So I definitely encourage anyone who has a fear of guns, if they want to push through it, message us and we will hook you up, whether it's all women, men, whatever it is, young, old, we can find the right fit for anyone across the state.
Absolutely.
Another comment. This is completely absurd. I am really upset with this legislation being rammed through without proper representation of the people. Yes. Let's see another one. I think it is both. I think this was earlier to T's initial point. I think it's both intent and effect of the policies. Knowing the historicity of gun restrictions / bans, those in power know fully well what they are doing to keep a society vulnerable.
That sounds like an informed
agree with
individual
that.
right there.
Sounds like an informed.
Sure does. It sounds like somebody who knows that gun control measures have historically been targeted at the African American population.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was just talking to someone earlier about this bill, and I said, we were talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and I kind of joked, I'm a former conspiracy theorist, so I still believe there are some conspiracies that are nefarious, and but as far as the theories that go into it, I try to stay away from theorizing what their plans or intentions may be. Anything I can't document that well, I try to stay away from and just say, it's possible. I think this had. But nonetheless, I said when it comes to the gun issue, it's hard, not just the racial part, but the history of nations, namely those that go tyrannical. We had a similar conversation, Kim, with Steve,
Yep.
about the precursors to tyranny. But one of them tends to be gun control, gun safety and gun control laws. So it's like I don't want to go down the rabbit hole and get people all scared, but when you know that history, it's hard to ignore that,
Well, tyranny
Absolutely.
is as much a threat now as it was in the 18 and 1700s. And quite frankly, trying to take our guns. I will say this, anyone who thinks that every state, including ours, does not have a militia is wrong. Of course we do, especially after the things that went down this past spring. So, we take things very seriously. History does repeat itself. It was not too long ago where bad things happened when the government took people's ability to defend themselves. And I can't remember how much it was. I believe Sam was telling me about, I think, was it the Civil War, Revolutionary War? It was just 3% of the population, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So people who think it's going to take all this big uprising from a certain state or a certain country or our country, they're wrong. It's actually a very small percentage of people that if they say we're not taking this,
right?
No, you're not going to take our rights, then then that's not a threat. I'm not saying this or that. I'm just saying, if you want to start a civil war, keep coming at our rights, because people have had enough. People have been pushed to their brink, especially after this year. I say leave well enough alone.
I think I heard Lawson had dealt out his fair share of smoke in the Senate hearing, but I think he referenced that. I didn't hear it for myself, but he referenced look, basically you're gonna wake a sleeping giant. Don't poke the bear. Don't do this. But unfortunately, it probably just comes off as an idle threat and just something.
It's true.
And meanwhile, I just do want to say I'm not a part of anything like that. I'm not a member of a militia or anything, you know.
No, I'm not
I
either.
couldn't, I couldn't suppose what these people think, but I know many of them. I've seen on the news them, you know, cover, you know, a local militia somewhere, not local news, but you know, in another state. And these people, they're not planning a revolution. They're just, you know, training regularly how to take control of a situation in their local area to protect their neighborhood if something were to go down, whether it's, you know, a foreign threat or, you know, foreign domestic, whatever. But they're literally telling the news that we're not planning on a revolution. We're just training that if we're ever put in this situation, we can respond and protect everyone, you know. So it's not a bad word, you know.
I mean, I now know, you know, the last few years as I've gotten involved in training, I know a lot of folks that are responsible gun owners, and I don't know a single one that is plotting for a revolution.
Right.
But I do know some that are saying no, no, they're not going to, you know, be able to come and take away our ability to defend ourselves and protect the ones that we love and protect our homes. That's not something that I'm willing to comply with.
Yeah.
Although they don't say it quite as nicely as I do.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're the nice one. We got the nice one with
I told you she's the nice, polite, and eloquent one. You need to like be the person we put up front all the time.
He has a gift. T does not. So,
appreciate that.
T, I'm with you, man. I'm like no filter, rough around the edges.
Yeah, you want to shake
you know
something
what? We're
up,
all so different, and we have such different backgrounds, and yet we've all found this thing in common that really unites us in purpose.
What, Keith?
I was going to add, you know, for virtue, for noble and virtuous reasons, you know, for a virtuous cause, you know, protecting family, you know, community and such. But another good point made in the comments, you know, I think it's in reference to SB3. It's the availability as well. So many training instructors are backlogged with classes. It just adds more time until a person needs to get their permit. So
that's right.
I mean, we had a similar problem with you know, firearm and ammo sales being, you know, places being not having stock, not being open, you know, initially.
And with a high demand, there's also going to be a raising costs.
Right. And you know, a lot of some of the firearms instructors that I'm acquainted with who offer more advanced training, they've been so inundated with folks just starting out in the realm of gun ownership, or maybe folks who shot a long time ago and are now interested because they're a little scared, they're a little cautious, and they want to be able to prepare themselves or to defend themselves. And some of the more advanced kinds of training aren't available as readily because they're so inundated with you know, concealed carry classes, just first-time shooters, you know, people that are just interested in starting out now.
Right.
And something to keep in mind is there's time limits on things. So you have to get this training done in a certain amount of time that you get your fingerprints done. Or then otherwise you're gonna have to start the process all over again. But I do wonder one thing, and some guy brought this up in the Senate committee hearing, and I never thought about this. And I feel silly for never thinking of this. I feel like an idiot almost. So here's the thing. They say you have to get training before you can get a permit to buy a gun if you can't get a gun until you get the training. So which comes first, the training or the gun? How am I supposed to get my training and turn it in to get my permit if I don't have a gun to train with?
Use a BB gun.
How are you supposed to buy a gun and train with it? Like,
that's where they're going to start.
That makes sense. I'm frozen again. I can't hear you guys. I'm sorry.
They're going to start renting out guns to account for that.
Oh, we're going to rent government guns now.
In certain places, they actually they allow you to rent guns, but that's just more of a cost. You know, if I don't want to take my gun out and I can go there and get a gun that's a replica of mine, then cool, let me have the option to do that. But if I can't get a gun until after my training, how am I supposed to get the training without renting a gun or without getting one illegally and then hoping that I can pass by until I have the permit?
And of course, it's always more helpful and safer in the long run if you can train with the gun that you actually intend to shoot
Exactly.
or carry.
They're all different, but you would
They're
have
all different.
to know that, to know that, so
Right.
again, another example of lawmakers not being that familiar with things that they're making policies on.
Right. I mean, I've invited a lawmaker to join me at the gun range. I haven't heard back yet, but the offer is still open. And the reality is if you have never tried it and don't know, it can just be enjoyable as sport, whether you choose to use it as a route for self-defense or not. At one point in time, I felt, I said I never wanted to touch a gun. Guns kill people. I didn't ever want that on my hands. And now I realize it's not guns that kill people. A gun is just a tool in someone's hand, and it's how they choose to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I've come to decide that I want to be able to defend myself and defend my children.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So another question
And you
was
should
asked.
have that right, uninhibited.
Absolutely.
Right.
God gave me that right. The United States government acknowledged that. Delaware Constitution affirmed it. And so for somebody to try and make me have to pay to exercise that right, then now they've suddenly made it a privilege rather than a right.
Yep. What does shall not be infringed mean? I mean, that's obviously we have different, I was just talking to someone about that. It's like, well, we can play, word games or what have you, where, oh no, well, you can still get them, but you have to jump through all these hoops, pay this fee, wait this time. Hopefully
You
you're
have to
not
deal with the
angry
infringements.
in a situation, by then, but yeah, but it's not infringed at all. You can still get access to it.
Infringe is to act so as to limit or undermine.
Mm-hmm.
To act so as to limit. Isn't that what we're doing? We're putting limits on something that shall not be infringed.
And we call it safety. Public safety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They are good with the PR spin. They're just calling.
Right.
So good question. How does any of this affect people that already own the gun, aren't planning on buying? And I guess it'd be maybe for SB 6 more so than 3.
Magazine ban.
There's certainly that the impact on the magazine limits. There's also so it's not just saying that you can't buy those magazines, which is what some states have done. Some states have put limits on whether or not you can purchase them. This is actually saying you cannot have it in your possession. So if you do, you're a criminal. So if you already own a magazine that is that holds greater than 17 rounds, then you must sell it to the government. Who's going to buy it back? Not at cost, not at value, but far under value. And the other thing is, there was a time when my firearm needed to be repaired. I had to send it off for repair. So maybe I said, I'm a one gun person. I don't need any more than one gun. So this doesn't affect me. Until all of a sudden my situation changes. I had to send the gun off for repair, and that left me without a gun. So what am I going to do in that situation?
But even with SB3, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I thought that every person would still have to have the permit. So if you bought the license or if you bought the gun at a time where you can legally buy it.
Only to purchase a new gun.
Okay.
No, it's only to purchase a new gun, and they're saying that they'll honor those who have a concealed carry permit already, but not really, because they still have to apply for the permit. So they don't have to go take the course, but they'll still have to apply for the permit. And you made a really good point, Deborah, about just because you already own a gun. So I own a gun. I bought a gun over the summer, a handgun. And because it was slim pickings, it's hard for me to rack it back. And so like, I want to get more, well, I want to get more guns anyways, but so I have to like, if this bill passes, now I'm going to have to go and pay the $500. Well, I actually already took a course, but I'm still going to have to pay to, get the fingerprinting done. I'm still going to have to let my name go on a list. How is that fair? Like, why are our names going on lists? They're creating registries. People don't understand there's not a registry right now. There is no gun registry. Just because you buy a gun and you do a NICS federal background check, it doesn't put your name on a list. This new policy that Delaware's trying to pass, it does put your name on a list. Why does anyone need to know what guns I own?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Absolutely.
It's a hot mess right now.
Sorry, I'm looking through the comments.
Do you want me to talk about ghost guns so you don't forget?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ghost gun bill. So basically, a ghost gun is
That sounds scary.
It sounds very scary.
I should
It
be
sounds like some big bazooka.
80%,
right.
80, but an 80% built gun. And so it's mostly hobbyists that know how to do this, and it's an expensive hobby. And they're afraid that these guns are going to be used in crimes. As a matter of fact, the Moms Demand Action lady said that her reasoning behind supporting banning not all the way put together guns is because teenagers in high school might be able to figure out how to do it. And if they figure out how, they might be able to commit crimes. So these are all potential situations that have never happened in Delaware. And that's why we need to just ban everything. But yeah, these aren't even put together all the way guns.
Right, you'd have to know that, like, I know how to take my gun apart for cleaning, but I don't know how to assemble a gun from scratch, because that's something that hobbyists, that people that enjoy that, and there are many folks that really do enjoy that, but they do it as a way of life, not as a way to get around the government.
No, it's mostly criminals, right? All criminals.
I don't know. The people I shoot with are not criminals.
Right.
Yeah, I have a different stance on it. Slightly different. I feel like since America's been America, you've had the right to keep and bear them. And people have made guns from the beginning. So I personally wouldn't care if you're a hobbyist. I wouldn't care if it was something that you made so that at the end of the day, you had nothing, quote, tied to your name. Because some people do feel like the NICS check and all that is putting their name on a registry, though I don't think it is. But regardless of your reasoning, I think you should have the right to manufacture your own weapon. It's already against the law to manufacture it and sell it. So what will banning, quote, ghost guns, what effect will it really have that the legality or lack thereof of manufacturing and selling doesn't already have, but all that aside, I think that a person should have the right to manufacture their own weapons. A person can make a knife in their own home and it not be illegal, So at this point, I don't think that we should point to a boogeyman that isn't there and say, well, people may do this, they may do that, or try to point to commonality, which is something they do often. They try to point to how common a weapon is to say whether it should be legal, but if a person has the ability to make and has the desire to make the 80% lower into a fully functioning firearm, then they should be allowed to do so, because my right should not be infringed simply because the plastic doesn't have a serial number on it.
Right.
Yeah. Not only that, people who want to commit crimes aren't going to say, let me go build a gun first so I can use it.
They normally steal them. They're either stolen or, like, I've talked to Keith about it off air, but there was a while ago, I ran into a guy who had a bag full of guns. They were all legal, all serialized, and he was selling them on the street. So you can't say, well, because it's ghost guns, it makes it easier for people to get. It takes longer for people to get them. They have to order them, have to wait for them to be delivered, they have to put them together. So it's not like you just, they pop up in your home and 45 minutes later you have a ghost gun. You know, you think about it, it pops up, and then you have one. No, you have to order, you have to wait for it, then manufacture it. It's a lot easier and quicker to go on the street and have something fully functioning, serialized and all that, you know. So I think it's a lot of, I won't say misdirection, but a lot of misrepresenting, you know, and a lot of using boogeymen that aren't there, a lot of using crimes that haven't yet happened. Like the 17-year-old that could get the gun, that may do this, and that. I don't care about all that. I want to know what's happening right now and how can I defend myself from the things that are happening right now.
Yep.
Sounds like a sci-fi movie. Didn't I see that a few years back? Minority Report, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
They were arresting him and he hadn't committed a crime yet.
Thought crime.
Man, listen. It's one of the comments. Here we go. Okay. The end game. Ban all guns, knives, baseball bats, slapping, any form of self-defense. Shaking my head. And I said, and my response was, and then thought crime. I swear. This was a few minutes ago, you know, earlier.
Yeah.
And then thought crime. I mean, that's what it gets to. That's man.
You know, a gun is a tool. I don't even use the word weapon because when I'm taking it to the shooting range and just throwing some lead down range, it's not a weapon. It's a tool. It's, you know, it gives me the ability to, you know, practice shooting at a target, things like that. Now, I'm telling tales out of school, but once upon a time, I knew a kid. He might have been in my household, and when he was 6, there was a kid in his class that was bugging him, and he kept poking at him, and the teacher wasn't doing anything, and my son wasn't. Nope, I let it slip. He wasn't, you know, comfortable speaking up, and so his buddy gave him a pencil. And you know what he did? He took that pencil and he jammed it right there in between his eyes. Now, I am so glad it landed on the bridge of his nose because, you know, that was my son that did that. However, that was just a tool. It became a weapon in his hand because he chose to use it that way. Now, obviously, guns are a little different from pencils. Guns have a lethal quality to them that pencils do not. But at the end of the day, you can use them for hunting. You can use them for self-defense. You can use them for recreation. And all of these are guaranteed us under our Delaware Constitution.
I think it points to not only are there plenty of other things that you can either hurt yourself or hurt others with, and it just opens up the door for, look, well, we had to do it with guns. Now we have to do it with knives. Now we have to do it with bats, or, you know, but the same sentiment is, you know, it's like giving authority or power to government. They never give it back. Making one allowance turns into another.
Oh, you wanted that back?
Right.
You wanted those back?
Yeah.
Not happening.
We just passed the 1 year mark for the 2 weeks, you know, 2-week lockdown, you know. Come on, man. In 10 seconds after starting it, every outlet, every media, everyone was saying new normal from the gate. I was like, this is too soon to say that, you know. But anyway, so comment. Senator Kyle Evans Gay says we are using women as props rather than acknowledging only 3% of women will make it through their lives without experiencing sexual violence. You mean how liberals tend to prop up minorities? You mean like that kind of using props and pandering is, you know?
Well, you know what amazes me is, you know, so I'm a survivor of domestic abuse, and for me, my journey in gun ownership and learning to operate a gun and safely, effectively has just helped me in tremendous ways. And one of the ways it's helped me is in finding my voice and my ability to advocate for myself and knowing that I am worth defending, my children are worth defending, and I have the skills, I can develop the skills to be able to protect the ones that I love. And Kyle Evans Gay saying that we're using women as props. Are you trying to imply that we women can't think for ourselves? That just because women are rising up, that women are exercising their voice. We are the largest growing demographic in gun ownership. Well, of course, women have something to say about somebody wanting to take away our Second Amendment rights. So don't tell me that women are props. Not when, as a fellow woman, we're supposed to back each other up, not put each other down, not imply that we don't have a brain of our own to be able to use and decide, you know what, this is wrong, and I'm going to take a stand against it.
I would just like to add to that Senator Kyle Evans-Gay, if she, for just a second, would listen to women who do support the Second Amendment, she's a member of Moms Demand Action herself. She has surrounded herself with only women who oppose gun rights, who want strict gun control. And just because she's put herself in that bubble does not mean that there's a whole nother piece to this, that just as many women, if not more, moms, we're not demanding action, we take action. And we want to keep our gun rights, and we are not props. So don't speak for us again like that, please.
And you know, I think if people start listening to each other, Kim and I first met because she spoke on an issue and we weren't necessarily on the same side of the issue, but
Nope.
We could respect each other and listen to each other. And that's what I loved about her right from the start. You know, we've lost the ability for civil discourse in our nation. We've lost the ability to just talk and listen and hear that, okay, maybe we're all about the same thing, you know, reducing gun violence, but maybe we have different approaches and, you know, take the time to listen.
The first night I ever met Deborah, I had showed up to a well-armed women chapter up north, and I was there to talk about SB 79, which would have allowed gun rights back to medical marijuana patients. And the ladies let me shoot that night, which I wasn't expecting. It was my first time shooting in years, and it was just the best experience. And Deborah didn't really talk to me the whole time. We were doing our own thing, and she came up to me before she left. And I will never forget this. It left such an impression on me. You introduced yourself to me and you said, just so kindly too, the way you always are. And you said, until tonight, and I still might be, but I was against any medical marijuana, or you said in so many words, anyone who uses cannabis also being associated with guns. And she just said to me, you've made me question that. You've made me think more about that. And she didn't reject me or what I was saying.
Yeah, I believe I said, you know, I'm not sure that I agree with you, but I'm listening to what you have to say.
Another, I appreciated that so much. That meant the world to me. And I wish women like Senator Kyle Evans-Gay would also listen to what other women have to say that she doesn't agree with, especially being a lawmaker. I feel like it's not fair that the only women in Delaware that until recently were given a platform were those who were against gun rights. And we had to fight tooth and nail for our platform. And It's not right, because as fellow women, these female legislators should also be listening to us, because what we have to say is important. And it affects all of us. It affects their daughters and their mothers and their sisters and their aunts and their friends too.
Right.
Well, I don't want to mansplain, but I think it's an interesting position to hold, or statement to make, that they're using women as props, considering that, you know, one of the most tense or worse cases that a cop could get called to is domestic violence. So you want to leave women unarmed in a situation to where they could be, to where even cops are more likely to have a negative interaction. You know, you want to leave them in these situations defenseless. You want to leave them in areas where you're not considering the fact that women are by and large vulnerable. You know, not to say that they're weak, but they're weaker than a man, you know, for all intents and purposes.
There's biological differences. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you want to ignore that and minimize the equality that a gun offers, you know, the safety that a gun offers, the balance that a gun offers, you know, and I think it's a lack of perspective taking. Because you can't say that and also have truly considered, you know, these points.
That's true.
I believe it was Aaron. I'm not sure how to say her last name. Chronister.
Yes.
But she was actually the one that commented the senator's quote. But she also pointed out that, you know, Delaware legislature loves to likes to use statistics for gun violence, but they omit the CDC's statement that firearms are used, I think it's 60,000 times to 2.5 million times defensively every year. And then says later, you know, exactly, Deborah, and they claim to care, but won't even return our phone calls or our emails. Hundreds of women emailed and called. Crickets.
True.
They're thoughtfully thinking of a response. They're trying to prayerfully consider their response.
Yeah.
He's funnier than me.
You know, I didn't even get a response from, you know, my own representative until, you know, something came out on social media. And, you know, I didn't share a canned message. I shared a message from my heart. And I just want to know that my state legislators are willing to listen and hear my heart.
So that you guys would probably have more experience or knowledge of this than I personally do, and I don't care to. But that leads me, you know, to a question I had, which is, I don't even know how to ask it, but are these people real people? You know, do they mean? Are they genuine? Do they mean? Do they genuinely hold these convictions for the policies that they pass? Do they believe the bull, you know, that they present as real, helpful progress? Do you think yes or no?
I can't begin to determine what somebody else thinks.
I don't know if I'm interrupting anyone because my screen is frozen, but I would like, oh, go ahead. Sorry. Oh,
No,
all right,
ahead.
so I'll take that. I think, I'm sorry, I'm having internet issues. I think some of them, I think, look, they're human beings. I think some start out well-intended and get lost in the sauce. I think some start out well-intended and stay well-intended. I think some are brainwashed and they're stuck in that bubble where they're yes to everything and everyone laughs at all their jokes, even though they're not funny. And I think that they live in this world where they're spoon-fed information, and some of the new guys I feel like are being used as puppets. That's my personal opinion. That's what I'm seeing. The more experienced, the veteran legislators are telling them what to think and do. And that's just what I'm seeing. But I could be wrong because I'm not inside their brains. I think humans are capable, you know, some of them, I think they believe the things that they're saying. I think they're brainwashed into thinking they're going to make a safer Delaware. But the fact that they're not listening to otherwise, if a legislator, if a lawmaker cannot consider all sides of something, then they're a danger to society, quite frankly.
They're merely an activist.
Right. They're merely an activist. Yeah.
And I think it's important, if you're a legislator, I certainly want to see that you have passion. You know, I want somebody that's going to fight for Delawareans, fight for us, and that you're going to do so with passion. Not with just, yeah, whatever, you know, that's not somebody that I want there. So giving people the benefit of the doubt, let's say that many are well-intentioned. I don't know that, but I'm certainly, you know, I didn't like hearing the fact that women were called props. So I'm not going to, you know, pass judgment on somebody else's motivation. But I do say if your real intent is for the good of the people, and you have this many emails against, this many emails for the bills, and this many emails against the bills, well, who are you really listening to?
I was going to say, you know, passion's good. And yeah, you want them to be passionate about being a representative of the people's voice, not
Mhm.
just passionate, like
Yeah.
T said, as an activist, passionate about a particular side or cause or issue. You should only be like I don't want to say puppet, but you're a representative, you're delegated, to do this job on behalf of the voices that are telling you what they support and don't support. So when it's stacked the opposite way, you're the opposite of that. I'll just be nice and just say you're the opposite of that.
They're self-serving. They shouldn't be self-serving. It's about the people that you represent. You represent them. You work for them. You're supposed to be there to stand up for them when they need you. You're not there to push your own agenda or what your friends, in the seat next to you in that chamber are pushing. And I feel like they've gotten lost. I feel like that's just been lost.
And sometimes you might start out very passionate for one cause, but then you get new information or you consider something in a different way than you ever had before. Like, I'm still dialoguing with Kim, because I think what it takes when you argue with passion for something and you fight with passion for something, it doesn't mean that you become closed-minded and stop listening.
Yep. Dialectic, ready and willing to
I wish
hear the
these
other
legislators
hear the other side.
would remember it's okay to change your opinion and your stance based on new information.
Right.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
if they're not willing to receive things, it's going in one ear, out the other. What's the point? At this point, they're just going to do what they want to do. Now, there are a few that we still have faith in, and that's why we haven't given up. I mean, you can't give up anyways.
I think it takes a
But
strong
it is
person.
a little frustrating when you're presenting them with facts and statistics and information, and they're just disregarding it.
Yeah, I think it takes a strong person to realize, a person with a lot of backbone to realize, what? I always thought that this was the right thing to do, but I'd never considered this before.
Aaron comments, listen to how each rep and senator for the gun control phrased it. It's to quotations. It's to keep guns out of the hands of those that shouldn't have them. They did not say, quote, to keep guns from criminals. Less guns, period. Yeah.
And that's what the evidence plays out.
That is their goal.
Yeah.
Because they're not enacting, they're not getting tough on crime.
Right.
If we're all about, keeping guns out of the hands of criminals, then let's get tough on crime.
Yep. I've heard
we don't need to create new laws that affect those who follow the law.
Yeah.
If we're really trying to affect criminals.
I've heard that it's exactly what you just said. It's soft AGs, letting people walk constantly that have actually committed crimes that you're making new laws, but you don't enforce the ones you have and don't convict the people, that actually have broken laws, committing violence with guns, and of course we saw plenty of that over the summer with, people committing crime, vandalism and attacks and things, and one after the other walks.
Right, and it affected many parts of our little state too.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It affected many parts of our little state too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else? I don't want to.
What's happening is, what I've been told is people get. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say part of the problem why it's not getting. What's happening is why these people aren't getting charged is because they're pleading the gun charges down. They're saying, okay, you got arrested for these 5 things. We're going to plead these 3 down. And then they just get out and they get arrested for the other things again and again and again. For whatever reason.
Yeah. And none of this had anything to do with the average Joe, gun owner.
Right.
Right. And like the, the shooting that took place just a month and a couple days ago in Dover, and 4 people were shot. And this is somebody who's a person prohibited from possessing a firearm. And I don't know a lot about this, but bail was set at like $4,000. What's that?
I said, no, that didn't happen. The laws, they stopped all that. They made a law, says you can't get a gun. The guy didn't get a gun and he didn't shoot anyone because there's a law for it.
Right, because laws are going to prevent it. Only following the laws and enforcing the laws will help.
Sorry.
Right.
And until we figure that out, we're just going to keep throwing money and, trying to create more laws and overburdening the taxpayer with the cost of, enacting these laws. But it's still not addressing the fact that criminals are allowed to walk free. Gun-toting criminals are allowed to walk free.
Well, I don't want to keep you or anyone else too long, but was there anything else that we didn't touch that you wanted to touch tonight that you want to throw in before we conclude?
I would just like to say, again, even if you don't own a gun, the Second Amendment is so important to support. And please do send those emails to your representatives. I know a lot of people hear that and they're like, I don't know what a representative is exactly, because I didn't either. Like, what's the difference between a representative and a senator? Look us up. Women's Defense Coalition, find us. If you tell us your address, if you message us, we'll tell you exactly who your representative is. The only way to stop this is to email them. And as Deborah said, tell them your story, tell them why you're opposed, make your voice heard. We need that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you want to support what we're doing, you can go to at DW, I'm sorry, let me restate that, at WDC, that stands for Women's Defense Coalition, at WDC of Delaware on either Facebook or Instagram, and you can find more about us there.
Okay. Well, this was fun.
Thanks for having us.
Sorry. Anything
We
before?
appreciate you letting us talk about this.
I mean, I guess I'm letting you. I mean, it's, I appreciate you guys making time because, to be honest, I can kind of read or skim an article or a bill just like anyone else, but I know you guys know a little bit of not circumstantial, I'm trying to find the word, but like what's going on, what's really going on here.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a value to me, to us, to have your input as well, because I know you guys you tend to be, especially, Kim, I've talked to you a few times, you're privy to a little bit more information than say what's in the news article, so yeah, and I want to be informed. So and this is honestly a shame. I'm hoping, being the optimist, I'm kind of a realist and I don't believe it, but I'm hoping that someone out of those 13 to 8 vote, that there's a couple of those 13 people actually believe this had merit and actually was trying to do something good, and just was ill-informed. And I'm hoping those people can be reasonable, critical thinkers and be reached by ladies like yourself. So yeah,
I pray that's the case.
and gun, I mean, I don't know how simple it is, but a bill that's voted to be enacted can be voted to be repealed or reformed or changed, correct?
It can be. We'd rather stop it before it ever becomes law.
Absolutely.
But in this case, it would take a lawsuit, which is a lot of money. Yeah. Okay. Did I talk over you again? I'm so sorry. My internet's terrible.
Interrupting.
I don't mean to. I don't know.
I know. I'm just messing around. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, definitely stop it before it happens. Stop the bill, that is, before it happens. If possible. So yeah, anyone that has questions, like they say, either reach out to them, comment below or whatever. If you want your voice to be heard, you know, and want to know how to do that and are having trouble, whether it's them or us, I mean, we'll figure out how to point you in the right direction. But you know, just reach out.
T, you should come shooting with us sometime. Keith, you
Sounds
can
good to
too,
me.
but I don't know if you're an enthusiast like T is. T, you should
Not like T is.
hang out with us. I'm gonna get your information and send you the next time we're down at the range, because we're always down your way.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm an enthusiast. You know, but I'm not like him. And so I like, you know, different guns and different features, but not to that extent. So, yeah. But he's definitely your guy. And I'll leave it at that. I'm into putting all kinds of information out there. He does this. He goes over here. You know, he'll build you a ghost kit if you want one. No.
Who had a fez at my door?
Right, exactly.
On the street, we're gonna have straw purchase ghost kits.
Right. Well, he's the one that said he just walks past a guy on the street with a bag of guns. You know, I don't know what street he's on.
Yeah, you're the one that knows
right.
the guy with the bag of guns.
Right, bag of guns. Sheesh. But no, we'll just make more laws, and that guy won't have that bag of guns anymore. And it just as simple as that. So, problem solved. See, I couldn't. If you run, you know, Kim, you got my full support. But I couldn't be in politics. I'm going to make a law and it'll go away. No, we need less laws, less regulation, and maybe that's the role of someone being in that place, in that position. Yeah, but anyway. So
I always joke, if I ever get elected, I'm going to bring up young Republicans with me, and I'm going to let them have space in my office. And one or two of them is going to be dedicated to reading through all lame laws and finding all the bogus ones, and we're getting rid of them, or the wasted tax dollars, or this or that. That's right. Time to start cleaning up. Think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. I'm also going to fix the concealed carry. I'm going to fix the concealed carry, the may or shall, the whole 5 references, no more. I'm going to fix everything. They better listen. These gun grabbers better hope I never get in legislative hall.
I think they're going to try to see to that.
I'm going to try.
She has my support.
Thank you.
Look, you know, Deborah, you're wonderful. Kim, I hope I'm never on the other side from you on any issue. You seem relentless, you know, so I'm hoping to be on your side. You know.
Tenacious.
What's that?
Tenacious.
You're
That's
on
an
my side.
excellent word.
Tenacious.
Well, you know, Deborah, it was awesome meeting you. Everything you had to share, you know, Kim, as always, you know, it was a pleasure. T, I wish I could say the same. So I don't know if you guys don't have anything else. I'm gonna let you guys go, and you know, we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
You know, Kim, as it tends to be, the next thing that happens, we'll probably do this again.
Thank you both.
Yes, we will.
Thanks for your support, Keith. Great meeting
Hi,
you,
everybody.
Yeah, very awesome. Thank you very much. And as far as on our end, if anyone wants to listen to more, wants to find out more, you know, this podcast, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, but there's also the website, Acts, the number 2, the word and the number 42.com, Acts 2 and 42.